to having my fair share of travel experience within the hotel industry and teaching my employees how to secure the best rates, I want to tell you everything I've learned over the years on how you can travel without it becoming a financial burden. I'm going to take you through my process and teach you the hacks I use to find amazing destinations for low prices. Or if you already have a destination in mind, I'm going to show you how you can cut costs and plan your dream vacation without breaking the bank. There's 3 key components that we're going to discuss today: flights, lodging, and transportation. Let's start with flights. Usually the most expensive part of the trip, especially if it's international, is the cost of the flight. So let's go over some tips on how to find the cheapest flights that are reasonable and do not require a 46-hour layover. You can go ahead and skip to step 2 if you already know exactly when and where you want to travel. So for example, going to New York City for New Year's, Japan for cherry blossoms, or your favorite city for your birthday. If you don't have these options down, then first things first, we have to find out when and where we want to travel to. If you have a specific place in mind but you don't know when you want to go yet, one of the things you can do is find the cheapest time to fly to this place, which is also known as the off season. On the other hand, let's say you don't know where you want to go, but you do know when you want to travel, you can find places with an off season during your desired period. You can do this by going to a website like Skyscanner, and instead of choosing a destination to fly to, just leave it as the Explore Everywhere option. For example, maybe you don't know where you want to go, but you want to travel somewhere during the holidays. Then you would search the web on the cheapest places to travel during said holiday and pick from those destinations. If you don't want to use Skyscanner, you can also try Googling some articles. This is what I've done previously because they also give activities that you can do even during the off season. Here's a tip. So although there is no best day of the week to book your flight, studies have found that airline prices are the cheapest when flying on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and the most expensive on Fridays and Sundays. If you don't have very flexible dates and you have to travel on a Friday or a Sunday, don't worry, I'll get into a few tips on how you can still save money on your flights. Now that we know when and where we want to travel, we have to decide when to purchase tickets. If you book your flight too close to your departure date, they will usually get very expensive, so it's recommended to book anywhere around 4 months to no later than 3 weeks beforehand. If it's international, you want to lean towards 4 to 6 months beforehand. Now, if you are traveling to a destination when it's considered the off season, so like a tropical place during the winter months, you can sometimes get away with booking a flight very close to the departure date. This happens because airlines struggle to sell seats during the off season, so they cut the prices really low just before the departure date. By doing this, they at least make some money on seats that they otherwise would have made no money on if they decided not to sell it for so cheap. Here's a big tip. There's actually some airlines that offer unlimited flights for a season for just a few $100. But usually the catch is that you have to book all your flights within 24 hours of the departure date, which really doesn't allow for much planning. And they also block your ability to book flights on popular dates and holidays. Oh, and they also charge crazy amounts for your luggage.
You serious?
So unless you're okay with randomly planning a trip the day of, you usually don't use much luggage, and you also don't usually travel on popular dates, it ultimately just might not be worth the time and effort. Now, when it comes to the websites that I use to find and book flights, I usually scramble between Google Flights and Expedia to get a general idea of my options, and then I go directly into the airline's website when it's time to book. From my experience, and I have no affiliation whatsoever, I've had the best luck finding good deals on Southwest Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, or Zip Air. But there are several occasions where I found better prices on other airlines that I might not usually use. This is really dependent on the locations you're going to and the airlines that offer flights there. Now, if you're currently looking for flights and you already like the prices you're seeing, I recommend just booking when you have a good opportunity. Prices fluctuate every day, so it's important to jump on an opportunity if it presents itself. Small tip: if you like the price but you feel like it might drop, book main cabin instead of economy. For a small upcharge, this will let you cancel and refund your ticket if you happen to see a cheaper price down the line. Right before you book your flight, make sure to read the fine print and especially know whether or not the price of that flight includes luggage. Companies like Spirit and Frontier are notorious for offering very cheap flights and then charging very big fees on carry-on luggage, which counter the cheap price of the flight. There's been plenty of times, for example, when Spirit had a good deal, but then I added on all the extra fees and it ended up being more expensive than other airlines that gave free carry-ons and just better service in general. Lastly, once you know where you're going and when, and you've double-checked your trip information, and you've cross-examined across different airlines to make sure you're getting the best price, see if your credit card company's travel portal offers the flight you found. This way you're getting the best price and you're earning money for booking through your credit card institution, so it's a win-win. If you don't have a credit card as an accountant, I highly recommend getting one, and I have a video that can give you a quick understanding of just how beneficial they can really be. Now, what's sometimes even more expensive than your flight, especially when traveling domestically, is lodging. So let's see how we can minimize our costs so we don't break the bank when finding a place to stay. Here's 8 tips you can use on your next trip. I'm gonna prioritize showing how to save money on hotels and Airbnbs because those are my 2 most common ways of finding lodging. Throughout my time in the hotel industry, I was able to see that most guests actually pay different rates for the same room. A lot of times third-party websites actually charge more than the hotel itself because they have to add commission on top of the base rate. I'm not saying to not use third-party websites, but the best rate is usually on the hotel, and we're gonna dive into how to get an even better rate than what the hotel is offering. Now, I mentioned the off season earlier, and not only are you going to save a lot of money on your flight if you book it for the off season, you're also going to save a lot of money if you book your hotel during the off season too. If you don't know when the off season is, feel free to call the front desk. This is not only a great way to find when they offer the lowest prices, you can also just straight up ask them for what the lowest rate is that they can offer you. Now that you have the front desk, you can also ask if they offer special prices for extended stays. This is super common on all lodging, even Airbnbs. So if the website doesn't automatically give you a discounted rate for your extended stay, feel free to just ask them yourself. You literally lose nothing for just asking. Let's say you book a room. Even after your reservation is confirmed, keep looking for better rates in the coming days and weeks. If you do find a better rate, call and see if they can match what you found. They would much rather lower your rate and lose a few bucks than lose your reservation completely. If you haven't already, sign up for their loyalty rewards program. Hotels will usually give you like 10 to 15% off your room rate if you sign up for their rewards. This looks really good on the company's part, the more members that they have, so take advantage. Now, Fridays and Saturdays have the most expensive rates, so don't be afraid to switch to a new hotel if they offer a better weekend stay. And you can also mention this to the front desk and see if they can price match. Again, it doesn't hurt to ask. If you're using Airbnb, you can actually negotiate the price being offered by the owner. So for example, you can write them a message and let them know that you really love their place, but it's just outside of your budget, and if they'd be willing to maybe lower the price a little bit for your stay. If you don't use Airbnb, you can also try House Trip or Flipkey. Lastly, I need to mention this, do not be afraid to use your credit card points with your travel partners. Any video where people say they travel for free, this is how they do it. I really recommend making the most of your credit opportunities. Bonus tip, if you're needing something last minute, hotels tend to lower the price of available rooms so that they're sold by the end of the night. This isn't a great option if you're trying to plan a stay way in advance, but it's good to know if you're ever in a pinch. As I transition over to transportation, the biggest non-financial tip that I can give you is to prioritize your hotel's location in an area that will provide you with convenient transportation. If, for example, you plan to visit the city center often, do not get a location that's an hour away just because it was cheaper than a more convenient location. Obviously, be reasonable. Don't get the most expensive option just because it's right where you want to be. Get a good mix of convenience and pricing. If your city has metros, prioritize an area near metro stations or bus stops. There's no point in saving money on a hotel just to spend hundreds on transportation. Now, let's say your city has no subway or train stations and you really want the flexibility of having a car as transportation. Keep in mind, with a rental car, you are paying for the car itself, the gas, any parking fees, the insurance unless your credit card covers it, and the stress of driving in a new city you're unfamiliar with. And you may also need to pay for an international driver's license if traveling internationally. What I actually recommend is planning your itinerary around this cost. So if there's a few activities that you want to do that are just outside your city center, plan to do them around the same day so you only need to rent a car for that period of time. That way you can walk and Uber every other day, and you're only renting a car when you really need it on those days with longer trips. An inside tip on Ubers, the same car can sign up for Uber X, Uber Comfort, and Uber Green, so just default your option to Uber X to save money, and always compare the cost to Lyft so you're getting the best price between the two companies. Credit cards may also offer a percentage of cash back when using certain companies. For example, I get 5% back when I use Lyft, so I take this into consideration when comparing prices. Now you know a few more tricks on how to save money on flights, lodging, and transportation. I really hope you learned something new today. If you have any questions about maybe your personal travel situation, leave that in the comments and I'm going to do my very best to help you out. That is going to be it for me. I have another book to get back to, so have a fantastic day, week, and stay smart.